So hello and thank you for joining us today. We're joined by Dr. Smith, by Jody Ann Smith, and I'm really happy that she has agreed to come and have this conversation and that you'll get to be introduced to her bubbly personality, not to give anything away. But of course, so Dr. Smith is an IMG, an international medical graduate who has been successful in the match, and she's going to be sharing her journey. I'm actually quite excited, Jody Ann, because I actually don't know where you matched or how. So there's actually like a lot of things that I don't know. I'm going to find out in this conversation. So thank you so much for being here today.
You're most welcome.
So we could start by you just introducing yourself and telling us who exactly is Dr. Smith, who is Jody Ann. If they're two different people, sure. Who is Dr. Smith, who's Jody Ann?
Okay, sure. So I am Dr. Jody Ann Smith. I am actually one of a twin. She's Tony Ann Smith. I would say I'm a very bubbly, energetic person, and I love helping persons, and that's how I got into the medical profession. I'm outside of medicine. I like to dance, and I also like track and field. I used to run, and I'm a big fan of the performing arts.
Yeah, were you a professional dancer at any point or like semi-professional, like?
Sure. I had danced with three companies in Jamaica. Started off as a SOAR dance ensemble, which was born out of one preparatory school and the Arden High School. And then I left there to go to Deja Dance Academy. I stayed there for 2 years. That was a private dance company. And then I ended up at the National Dance Theatre Company of Jamaica, NDTC, under the directorship of Mr. Marlon Sings, who is awesome sauce. So yeah, no, I'm not really with a company, but I still do classes and recreational dance pretty much. Oh, no.
How do you not have the time? You're only, working in medicine. Okay.
I know, right?
Yeah, I was like, where does she find all this time?
Right, good question. I think in life, if it is that you are passionate about something, you will find the time. It can be hectic with a schedule, especially in preparation for the USMLEs. It was rough, but I found that doing recreational dances, like a Saturday dance class, would be totally doable, and it would still allow me to keep up with my schedule at work.
Okay, great. And I think that's a good segue because I found honestly, and I commented on this because it's completely true, that your attitude throughout the entire match process was so refreshing. And I've been doing this for 7 years now. And it honestly it was very new. Like I've actually been trying to think, I was like, have I ever worked with anybody who had it? So it wasn't like Jody Ann had given up on the match from the start. It wasn't that at all. It was very much like, I've done all this hard work, I want to match. But then there was this level of just like mature detachment from the result, though you wanted it, just like very laid back, but very positive.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, where did that attitude come from? Like positive that it could happen, but also just like completely laid back and enjoying the whole process.
So true, so true. And funny enough, usually I'm very worried and usually a bit stressed. And I think because having input from a cousin, I would say he had matched to a school overseas and he was very frank. His conversations are always very frank. If I want the truth from for anything in life, I asked my cousin and he said, honestly, Jody, you may not match. He gave me that talk, and after he said that, I think it really opened my eyes. And then we had done a segment with PGY3 from Howard when we were preparing for the interview season. Not interview season, for the matching, how to do the matching and that process. And his testimony about applying like 3 times. And I realized that doing the process, persons average apply more than once. So I said, I have to be open to that possibility. And looking at my own application, I had to be open to it. So I think it came from speaking to persons who have gone through the process and who themselves didn't match on the first attempt, but seeing them in positions. I'm just like, well, it's better that I accept that from now and just work towards it from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, it was very interesting because I think oftentimes, people, even me, I admit, will just like put people, in a box like, oh, they've already given up or they're really excited and everything depends on this. But you had like this really cool balance, which I think is really, really great. Yeah,
Awesome.
so even actually, so I think this is a joke, but I will share it with others. So what she's referring to, what Jodian is referring to, is that after everyone had submitted, yeah, it was time for you all to turn in your rank list, to turn in your
Right.
rank
Right.
order list, right? So we had an online session with Dr. Andre Morgan. He teaches inside the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. We do
Right.
work together. So we had a session going over just like ranking, match week, soap, well, letters of intent, soap, match week, all that kind of stuff. But again, you were just like the most present, bubbly one on
I know,
camera.
right?
Everyone else kind of had their camera off, didn't
I
want
know,
to be
my
much.
camera was on, I was stunting.
So that was funny. Definitely, different personalities. So cool. So actually, seeing that I don't know what you matched into or where, could you tell me about that and just like how
Or
it
I can't
felt
believe I
going
can say
through it?
that.
That's okay.
Wow. Anyway, so I matched the Inglewood. I remember through the whole process. Oh, you asked how I was so calm. I had good insight from somebody in the program, Dr. Sital. Wherever he is, he's a gem. And so he was able to put in a word for me. For example, he was able to guide me through processes, give me insight.
So what are you most looking forward to in residency training?
Okay, well, honestly, I'm looking forward to living on my own.
In residency training,
I
in the
know,
process
right?
of becoming a doctor, what are you looking forward to?
Well, for honestly, in residency training, I'm actually looking forward to. I know that this Corona time is very scary, but for me, I see it as an incredible learning environment and a stepping stone to just unlocking new avenues in medicine. Infectious disease, for example, that would be something exciting just to rotate through. I'm also looking forward to working on research. I haven't done much of research in Jamaica, and that's something that the school really pushes. So from the start, we have like an advisor, and we're all required to put through a paper. So I'm excited to get my hands into it and to feel more comfortable doing research. And then just being on a team, working with a team of doctors, working with the cases, getting my scrub with my name on it and my white jacket.
Right.
Yes, I'm excited about that as well. So that's
Yes.
pretty much, things that I'm really looking forward to.
Okay, sure. And I mean, I think it goes for all the IMGs who are watching this, that what Jodian is sharing is very important in terms of just approaching your match process. That program directors have a lot of applications. So if you are able to connect with colleagues at various programs and to have them guide you, to put in a word for you, there's absolutely no harm in that. And so you said, like, your colleague was very instrumental in that as well.
Definitely. I have to second that 100%. And that's even why that school was on my list, just because a Jamaican is there. That's enough reason to apply to our program.
Right.
That was the biggest influence. I had interviewed at another known institution, but I didn't have a direct connection there. There were new Jamaicans there. I didn't have somebody who could put a direct word in, for example. So I think that was instrumental. And if persons have that kind of a connection, you can, if you consider it in good and you're watching this, you can always message or action okay from a contact. It will be no problem.
Okay. All right. 100 messages to follow. All right. So, why did you decide to apply to the match in the first place?
Okay, good question. I had strongly been considering internal medicine, and I had two options: to do the program at UA or to look for the opportunity overseas. I actually applied to both with an open mind, and more so wanted to go to the States because I still wasn't really sure what area in fellowship I may want to consider. And I know that being in the States, all fellowships are available. If I also start a residency in the States, it's easier for me to transfer into fellowship from being in the States. And then just the opportunity of being in a new environment. I've not lived in a new environment, experiencing a different culture. So outside of the medicine, just a broad experience as well, which is why I wanted to seek residency overseas. In the same way, when I did internship, I actually wanted to work in a different country. Actually, I applied to Trinidad, Bahamas, and Barbados. It didn't work out, but for the same reason of just wanting a different environment and a different cultural experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you think that will make you grow as a physician? Apart from, I mean, I want to joke about living on your own, which is huge, by the way, like paying your
Yeah.
own bills, buying your own
Yeah, I know,
furniture,
right?
all
I
that.
don't think it's gonna hit home. It's gonna hit hard.
Well, it hits hard, but it's
It's
very
okay.
growthful, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess as a physician, how do you think you'll grow by going, through residency training in another country and having all of these fellowship possibilities?
Right. I think I'll be definitely more exposed to gold standard care.
Mm,
Definitely what's most recommended. So in Jamaica or in a third world country, you're exposed to it in
mm,
terms of your literature and your reading, but maybe you're not doing
right.
it in practice. So I think that would give me a good grounding in terms of my approach to patient care.
Mm-hmm.
I can apply the same principles I've learned. I may not have access to all the resources, but the teaching will be the same. I'm
Got it.
also excited about academia. I like to teach, impart knowledge, and so that's something I would strongly consider. So going to the States and being exposed to different avenues or different ways to treat patients and certainly gold standard recommendations. I'd be a better advocate, a better teacher, and a better doctor overall as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, absolutely. All right, and so just to talk a little bit about your memorable essay experience, maybe you could start with telling me why you decided to reach out for persons who might be in a similar position. What were some of your reasons or your thought processes behind that?
Okay, noted. So the first thing was that I was overwhelmed. I was just
Mm-hmm.
finishing up my step one exam. No, step one, my second step two exam. So I'd done the CK, the multiple choice. And at the time, the time I finished was the time I needed to start preparing for applications. And I
Mm-hmm.
have the time I felt exhausted. I felt like my exams were mentally exhausting, and I wanted to put my best foot forward for the application because I knew that the grades were one thing, but one thing that your program stressed is the overall or the complete package.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing was just to get my best foot forward. And I knew I wasn't able to do it on my own, having already been overwhelmed with my studies.
Right.
Right. And the
Okay.
second thing was having somebody experienced. I know that
Mm-hmm.
you're experienced in preparing other persons. And so the experience factor and the fact that you were so involved in the process
Mm-hmm.
was another done deal for me.
And
You
then
know,
if you could talk to us a little bit about what were some of your experiences, full transparency, were there any challenges? How
Mhm.
did it work out? What was the result? Again, just for
Okay.
anybody who, is
Sure,
thinking of it,
definitely.
I think it's important for them to know your experience.
Definitely. So, as I'm not sure if persons would already know, but you will eventually learn that with the member essay program, there are different levels. For me, I needed all the help possible because I am not the best creative. So you have to know where you stand. And I went all in, and my experience. So, for example, doing the personal statement. I love that everything in the program was timeline. So, and I work well with timelines. So, Shaki would send you a schedule and she said, in 2 weeks, you get this back to me, I get this back to you in 4 days. I really appreciated that. And I was, as I said, overwhelmed and exhausted. And having the timeline, I knew no matter what, I need to get this back to her. So I appreciated the timelines. I appreciated the direct involvement with my essay creation. So from content suggestions, brainstorming, and then writing the essay and then have it being drafted, have it being reread, and then the constant communication. So though Shanaki is suggesting how things should work or how she's writing what she thinks is the best approach, it's still you doing it. So I still have to do everything. And even if there's an edit suggestion, she would say, I think you could do this, but she's not going to actually write that for you. And that's another thing I love, that though it was a help program, a self-help program in a way, it was still you
Self-help.
doing it was still you doing the work. So if you think that you're gonna come and be like, okay, Shana Case is gonna write this and I'm going to be good, that's not
Mhm.
the situation. And I still appreciate it. So in the end, I felt like, wow, I created this. Um,
Mhm.
and I also love that you stuck to the end. I felt like you were just as excited or just as invested. It didn't feel fake. It felt like you were there and you really wanted to see me match, and that was also very motivating.
Okay. Oh, thank you. All right. And so when you actually went to interviews, I was curious to know, like, was there any way that your personal statement and CV actually connected to the interview? Because those open the door for an interview. And then once you actually go to the interview, for persons who don't know this, the interview becomes the main determinant. Well, how you perform on the interview then is what determines whether or not you match. So I like for people to prepare applications that will make a program not just notice them, but actually be really excited about talking with them. And so I
Right.
wanted to know, like, how did that work for you on the road? Like
Okay,
during
sure.
interviews?
Good question. So the certainly this the CV. So when they're interviewing, they have everything printed out, so you can see everything really. And my CV came up in a lot of ways. The most common reference to the CV was, oh, I see that you're involved in sports, or I see that you are athletic. Can you tell me more about that? So I got the impression that means that they were going through the information. As it relates to, that was the most talked about, actually, my extracurricular activities that came up most in the interviews, and just reference to it, and actually seeing the documents right there. I'm just like, wow, that's really just brought home to me the importance of other components to the application, not just the grades. One school in particular said, I remember I told them I was worried about my step one grade, and she said, I don't even know what it is. And I
Oh,
was just,
wow.
what? She said, I haven't even reviewed the grade. I'm like,
Okay.
and I was there like beating up on myself, like, oh my God, my step one grade was so poor. Like that was one thing that really stressed me for the entire
Right.
week. And to have her say it was just so liberating. But she knew that I did tracks, and she knew what I liked. And she's like, tell me more. But I don't even know your step one grade. That was
Okay.
the vibe.
And I don't know if you remember what you wrote about, but I actually thought that you were an amazing example of how some of the disciplines or characteristics, you could call it, that you had gotten from another life, from your
Right.
athletic life, were definitely pertinent to your medical practice. So could you tell
Definitely.
us a little bit about like what you wrote about? I think I had actually wanted
Sure.
for us to hear a little bit of your personal statement, but that's okay. You could just kind of
Okay.
tell us like the general gist and how you were able
Right.
to tie them in.
Okay, no problem. And well, let me just preface this by saying, for example, writing the essay, the idea, you had thrown out ideas, and on my own, I mean, it was still my personal story, but I didn't think that I would use that, to write an essay. So something like that was so powerful, I would give you all of my life experiences, and you were able to choose one, and then I was able to expound on it. And that particular life experience was getting a medal at champs, right?
So
2008.
heartwarming.
I know, right? Best year of my life, like
Yes.
best moment ever, coming from an underdog school at Campion College. I was able to medal in the 400-meter class 3 girl final in 2008. So that's how my essay started. And what I stressed, or what we highlighted, was the fact that my coach was able to, I doubted myself from the start. I mean, I'm from Campion, all these girls are faster. I'm just in the final, but I know I'm going to come last. It was just like, it was good enough to make the final. You're not going anywhere, girl.
Right.
And she, motivated me and showed me that anything that is possible. And we're able to use that same theme throughout the essay to state that it's the same way I approach my patients. A patient may be having a particular condition, but as a doctor, we are still emotional beings, and there's still compassionate care. And you can speak to your patients in spite of what may be happening, even if it's a terminal condition, and you can still give them hope. You can still give them interaction in that way. And then also another stem from the essay was the discipline and the characteristics that I learned from sports that I could apply to the application of medicine. So self-motivation, discipline to time, waking up early in the mornings, doing your ward rounds, the strive for excellence as a runner or as an athlete. Winning is the goal. It may not happen, but you are always determined to be the best. And that came out in the essay as well. So honestly, it was my life experience, but without Shanake, I never ever thought I would swing that in an essay. As I told her before her, this will be the start of my essay. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Julian Smith.
I can't. I'm always laughing, and people are going to think I'm crying. But whenever I'm talking to you, I know I'm going to laugh so much that my eyes actually water. I'm trying to censor myself.
Good afternoon. I'm Julian Smith. I am 27 years old, and I would love to be a part of your program. My qualities include.
Stop it. Right.
But yeah, seriously,
Mm-hmm.
that was awesome. And I sent it to my coach, by the way, and she was extremely moved. Oh yes, I did.
Oh
Yes,
no, that's so sweet.
Yes, Coach Bora. She was beside herself. Right.
Oh.
This is why I do what I do as a coach, and
Oh.
continue to make me proud. It was very moving. So.
Okay, that's so lovely. But I'm going to tell people just like a little bit about how it unfolded. I promise persons I'm not crying. It's just Jodian making me laugh as always. But it was one of those things that, sometimes people say it in passing. So one of the things that I think this, but my official training is like in journalism, right?
Right.
So in general, you're normally taught as an interviewer to leave the most difficult questions to the end, because people, sort of like really open up towards the end, or they open up like when the cameras are off, after they've gotten comfortable. So I do know that normally whenever I'm talking with someone and there's a consultation that we have that's like 1 hour at the beginning of the process to work on the personal statement. But I'm normally listening very keenly during that consultation and towards the end of it. And oftentimes that's where you get the best material. So it's not really a camera. Well, I guess it's a camera because we do it on Zoom. Right. But it's like when the camera is about to be off, people are going to say some really profound things. And your comment, I don't know if you remember it, but you actually said it was, and you repeated it so well. I think you said something like it was either like the best day of your life to date. Yes. I think that was what you said.
Yes, I always say it's the best, my best day. Like I haven't had any other experience that taught that. Honestly, best day of my life. Still is.
It still is.
Still is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I think just knowing that the energy, well, you're already just an energetic person. Like you have a lot of authentic and positive energy, which is it's quite easy to pick up on. Right. But I think when persons talk about things that they love or that are truly meaningful to them, it just, it displaces everything. So what we were able to, the part that I like that we were able to focus on, so there is the part about, just your discipline, just believing in the patients who, probably others think can't make it. But what I thought was so interesting that your coach did, which maybe it's because I'm not a track person, maybe this will seem obvious to track persons, but she predicted where you would place. Which I thought was amazing. Like
right.
Yeah, her knowledge of you had to be
so right. And I consider her more of a friend, as a coach. Because even like Shana K, it started off as a coach, but I'm very comfortable, and it can't be. You're going to have to, everybody have different personalities, but it's not gonna be mundane. You have to share with her. You have to connect, and in just doing the consultations, you find that you open up. And so, same for my coach. I trained with her for 7 years, and she's like a mentor, a close friend. And that's so true. I didn't remember that she said I'll come third. She said no, number 3 is for you, and then she wore the 3. That was just profound. So
she wore the 3 on her shoulder.
Yes, I can't really remember.
Yeah, I remember, because that's how it opens. That's
how
the statement opens.
Instead of my opening.
Right. Instead of "Hi, I'm Jody, I'd like a place in your residency program," it opens with the coach wearing a 3 on her shoulder. And I mean, I think, especially like as a young person, I know the influence that teachers and coaches can have on young persons, because people had that on me. But I think I can absolutely see why that's so meaningful. Like for somebody to know their sport so well, and to know the competition so well, like to know, is it 7 girls? Like all of those other girls, to know you so well, and to be like, you're gonna be 3rd. Here's my 3.
I know.
I want a physician like that. I want a physician like Coach Bora. So
definitely.
I think that was amazing. Okay, cool. All right, so just like a few final questions. And what did it feel like to get your match results? You know, you were kind of, like you said, open to doing this again,
I
but
know.
wanting it. How did it feel to
Right.
actually get the email or whatever it means?
All right. So my experience was, you know, in my head, I was expecting fireworks and like to be completely, you know, wow, which I was. But what's interesting is that I was in the middle of clinic, a busy day. And I had set the alarm on my phone. I think they said the results would come out at midday. I forget the time, but it was daylight saving. So I actually set it an hour ahead of when I should have gotten it. So it was my friend who messaged me I put 11 in my phone, but the result really came out at 10. And he's the person I know at Inglewood, and he put 2 eyes. So I'm just like, why is Ryan messaging me? Like, you know, he made me seem like, wow, like, you know, you got in. And so before I opened it, I had that sense of, oh my God, maybe this is happening. And I opened it and I wasn't able to do anything because the patient was right in front of me. And I'm just like, all right, man. So, how is the cough?
Okay, got it.
But it was like when Rani messaged me though, that was like me opening the email and my friend messaged me, because he didn't say, you know, he put like 2 eyes, like, you know, you need to look at this, you know, why aren't you saying anything? And I was like, oh my God, it's ready. And then I went and, you know, when I saw the email, I was just like livid. I did screenshots sent to my family. And then after work, I was able to be like, wow, this is actually happening. I've matched, like, you know, it was surreal. You know, finally, like, I just felt like finally it's making sense, you know, along the way, especially after my step 1, I must say I was just at from zero. I was just like over it, and I had done so much preparation, and I had just so many disappointments before, and I just felt like it was time for me to start winning. And that was just the start, you know, of it. And I was just like, here we are.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Spoken like a true athlete.
I know, right?
You know what that reminds me of? When artists are like on other artists' song, or they sample them and they don't know. It's so funny because I watch a lot of those interviews and they're like, yeah, my phone just started going off. Especially the ones who Beyonce used their music at Beychella. Most of them are like, oh, they found out because people were just sending beats
like,
to their phone.
Right.
Yeah. So he just sent 2 eyes, like the eye emojis.
Right, the eye emojis.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Cool.
And like I said, I always I spoke about him in my interviews. You know, to state that he was just there when even at my lowest moment after exam, he was just like, Jody, my score was lower, or Jody, that doesn't matter. Like, I'm here and I can assist you. You know, it can work out. And he was awesome. And so I made reference to him. It's also important to have somebody to guide you along the way. I mean, you serve as a guide, you have to have other guides along the process.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people do get hung up on their scores. And I think last week I was teaching a class and I was explaining to them that there's a difference between, like, you know, like an okay score and just like an offensive score. You can think of it that way. Like, you know, people bringing you something where you're almost like, how dare you even approach me? I think, you know, for persons who are not in that zone, it's something that, you know, you wish it were higher, but it's done, and you just have to start figuring out how to make yourself more and more competitive.
True.
And the truth of the fact is that, especially with basic sciences, like a lot of times the person you're interviewing with sitting before you is not going to be able to tell you, you know, the number of electrons surrounding the oxygen. It's just like people don't, you don't remember that necessarily. And people know that, right? So they're focused on the kind of care that you can give to a patient, you know, that's just what they want, like a good functioning program with a bright and highly competent physician. And it's not to say, as I said, to disregard your scores, but if they're not exactly where you want them to be, and it's not like multiple attempts and you're failing, it's just really something to work on accepting and just building up your other components in the process. So
totally agree. And even building on your other scores and looking at the best like field for you, because I remember initially I was tossing between family medicine, internal medicine, they're similar. Another thing I did, you mentioned the point about making your application more attractive. You may have to consider, look at the specialty, look at your score, look at persons. For example, family medicine, I don't know anybody in family medicine. And, you know, every day I look back, I'm just like, I really did the right, you know, I really made the right choice. It may mean looking back at the specialty, it may mean taking a year off to just work on something else, going and getting involved in research in the States. I know people who do that, but it just means that there has to be some shift, and the whole process requires shifting. So if you're not shifting or not changing something in a drastic way, maybe drastic is a harsh word, but what I realized is that I have to make changes. And if you're not making changes, then you probably should, you know, because the process, as you mentioned, that's another thing that's always stressed. The IMG rate compared to the US match rate, it's so much lower. So what are you doing to stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's just a maturity thing and just thinking for the long term, which we do a lot. I actually, thanks to the last group, after the last cohort, I was like, okay, I have to do more strategy work. But yes, just really forcing people to get honest with themselves and just be like, you know, where are you going with this grade to that? And it's not to say like don't try, like you can't.
No,
try,
yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. Right.
Yeah.
Because for example, if I wanted to match the surgery, that won't happen. You know, probably I'll have to go to the States, work alongside a surgeon, build a relationship, but straight from that grade.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. Yeah, to just be honest with yourself. All right, so thank you so much for your time. My final question to you going out is just, you know, you kind of hinted at this before, you know, thinking that you might like to see infectious diseases. I know you have a thing, obviously, for sports medicine. So just thinking even long term about your 5-year, 10-year goal, and then eventually, what do you want your legacy as a physician to be?
Okay, so definitely after training, I am strongly considering fellowship. Just knowing my passion and my drive, I want to be in that kind of super specialty area. As you mentioned, sports medicine is always in the mix. And being at National Chest Hospital, I've been exposed to a lot of pulmonology, which is quite exciting as well. So haven't settled on anything, but pulmonology is in the mix and cardiology as well. Given the influence that I have in terms of when I do questions, for example, or just understanding the pathology or the complex diseases, I kind of understand it easy. And I like it as well. So it's in the mix. In 10 years, I would see myself pretty much finishing fellowship in whichever area I've chosen. I've also thought about doing a double fellowship. So whatever I do choose, maybe to do sports after, it's only a year, and that would make me unique. So a sports pulmonologist or a sports cardiologist, who knows?
Yeah.
All right. And my legacy, I'd love to leave back in my profession compassionate care. I don't see it's there, but unfortunately in the profession we have lost compassion as doctors. And it has just come to a very dry relationship. It's just, can I prescribe your medication? There is no rapport, and there is no, I don't think, deep understanding or empathy. So that's something I want to leave my mark with. And also I want to leave with patients the sense of me being a person as a whole. So it's not just Jodie the doctor. I like to show persons my personality. Health and fitness is something that I stress no matter what area I'm in, and just to model that as well. So to show persons that I'm not just a doctor telling you to do something, but I want to leave that I'm modeling this as well. So those in a nutshell will be something I'd want to leave back: compassionate care, exemplary practice where I'm not just preaching to you, I'm doing what I'm saying, and to also just show persons that I'm a rounded person and I'm not just your average doctor.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jodian Smith, for chatting with us. And I hope that this was helpful to other persons, you know, going through the match process. What I heard from you is just to be open and accepting of what your cousin told you, that you might not match the first time.
Yes.
But it's definitely possible for you to match, to use all the help you can get. You relied on, I guess you had your cousin, you had a friend in a program, you had me, I'm sure you had other people, but you know, those are some of the themes, like, you know, putting your team together, and then of course whatever you have outside of medicine, actually showcasing that in your application, because it can be the reason that persons are really interested in, or are really interested in talking with you and getting to know what you can add to their team. Did I miss anything? Do you
No,
have any final words?
that sounds awesome. Final words would just be to go for it. You know, it's going to be rough, but if there's a plan, it makes it easier. You know, with the schedule. But I was just, I have to do a personal statement, resume, I have to do all of this, but there was a schedule. And I knew when I was going to start, and I knew I was going to finish. And if you stick to the schedule, you'll finish in the time. So once you make that plan, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Stick to the schedule, right?
Listen
To her advice.
Yes. Give Sean her things on time, people. She has things to do.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. It's always so fun talking with you. So thank you so much for
You're
being
most
here.
welcome. Yes, anytime.